Italy infamously didn't get the territories it had been promised for joining the First World War, which would cause issues further down the line. But given the sacrifices that Italy had made and the guarantees it had received, why was it then that after the war was over, Italy only received this? Why did the rest of the Entente go back on their word? So, as of 1915, Italy was firmly neutral as the First World War raged across the continent. Both sides knew that gaining its help would open a new front and stretch their enemies' resources, which meant that it was time to bribe Rome. In the end, the Entente's offer of this won out, mostly because of Italy's pre-existing claims on Austro-Hungarian lands and the Italians that lived within them. This offer was codified in the secret Treaty of London, in which Britain, France and Russia all agreed to honour the Italian claims to these lands in the Adriatic. They further agreed that Albania would be divided between Italy and Serbia roughly along these lines, with the south of the country becoming an Italian protectorate. Beyond this, it was agreed that after the Ottoman defeat, the Italians would be entitled to these lands here. And in Africa, it was roughly agreed that Italy would see some very minor adjustments to its colonies from Britain and France. The Italian government was happy to agree to this because it matched their ambitions of being a major Mediterranean power. Now, the French and the British were a little bit nervous about Italy potentially becoming an issue in the future, but that was a problem for the next generation, and so signed the treaty they did. So once the war was over, why did Italy get so much less? Well, for the lands in southern Anatolia, the reason was simple. They weren't the Entente's to give. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the new Turkish Republic fought off any attempts to carve it up, and as a result, Italy got nothing. No matter though, because they were still going to do well in the Adriatic, right? Well, no. In the final year of the war, the Entente realised that its deal with Italy was no longer really feasible because of one major unexpected change: the collapse of Austria-Hungary. When the Treaty of London was signed in 1915, it was believed that Italy would simply take these lands from a reduced Habsburg Empire. As the war raged on though, it became clear that the empire was going to disintegrate, which meant that in order to keep everyone on board, things had to change. Serbia's demands for territory were much greater than the Entente had envisioned, and whilst they would normally just ignore them, the issue was that the Slavic peoples to the southwest now wanted out from Vienna. As such, their options had to be taken into account. And these options were complete independence, staying tied to Vienna, joining Serbia, or being annexed by Italy. And the people there only wanted one of these options: Yugoslavism, the idea that the South Slavs should be united into a single state, Yugoslavia. And becoming a part of the Kingdom of Italy would surely lead to dissent and conflict in the future, which is one of the reasons it was decided that Italy would only get this. Now, Britain didn't really care about the region and what Italy got, but France and the US had very strong opinions. France saw a great opportunity to expand its influence in the region with the birth of Yugoslavia, and it didn't want Italy to control access to the Adriatic and thus France's new ally, whereas the United States believed in self-determination. Importantly, Woodrow Wilson didn't sign the Treaty of London, and so it wasn't his problem. And since his government had much greater sway over Britain and France, Italy got little in the region and some petty concessions in Africa. This of course led to a lot of resentment from Italy towards Britain, France and the US, but that was a problem for the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode, with a special thanks to my patrons: James Bizanet, Kelly Moneymaker, Sky Chappelle, Kartoitska, Yuduan Wang, Anthony Beckett, Marcus Arsner, Rod D. Martin, YN Hockey, AF Firefly, Spencer Lightfoot, Gustav Swan, Captain Psydog, Alex Schwinn, Shuenin, The McWhopper, Marvin Cassow, Spinning 3 Plates, Andy McGeehee, Copper Tone, Calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard, Maggie Patskowski, Kamoon Yoon, Winston Kaywood, Jim Stromberg, Remco Hoosman, Miss Izette, Charles I, and Words About Books podcast.